All right, I want to go over some watercolor. So this is the mixed media pad. So this is not watercolor paper, and this is not a watercolor class. So this won't take a whole lot of water without wrinkling a whole lot. So think of it more like staining. So I've got my container of water. You don't need to have one this big, but I like to have a big container of water because I don't have to change it as often. If you have a small container, that is something you should keep your eye on, or you'll pollute your paint. Next, you want to have like a paper towel or a napkin, or if you do it a lot, you could use a shop towel, which is a little more ecological. I've got a variety of brushes, but basically it comes down to flat or round, pointy round ones. So I'll just actually use a couple of these. I can get you one of these, but if you do a lot of field sketching, these are nice because you can fill the reservoir with water to rinse them out or to mix up paint. Okay, next you need to mix up enough paint. So you either need to find something like this yogurt lid, or this is like official palette. You can actually get them at like the Dollar Tree, I think. And I'm also have like this egg crate that I've got for a couple things. I can keep my pencils in this size. I can take a razor and slice down the middle. I have some Prismacolor pencils. I have some pens that I could use. I only have a few Verithins, but got a couple of colors. Another thing that can be nice to have is a hair dryer. All right, and I'm just going to use a 2H pencil. So we're going to a few shapes. Right. So when you're ready to start mixing up paint, you're going to want to mix up probably more than you think you'll need because you don't want to run out. It's better to mix up a little bit too much. So, and we want this paint to stain the paper more than sit on top of it. So you don't want to paint too thick. So you want to mix it up reasonably thin, but I just kind of scrub it around to activate the gum arabic. And then I just wipe my brush into the pan and rinse it out. All right, so once I got my paint mixed up, I want to start doing some washes. So I just my 2H pencil, I made a couple of rectangles I'm going to fill. The first wash is going to be a flat wash. So the idea of the flat wash is to be even. So what you want to do is you want to work it down from one end to the other, trying to keep the edge wet. So that's one of the reasons you want to make sure you've mixed up enough paint to so you can not have it dry out in the middle of doing your wash, because then you'll get a big streak in it. Watercolor is going to be imperfect. That's part of its charm, is that you work kind of fast. Again, you don't want the paint to sit on the top. You want it to stain the paper more, and you just get it on there. Don't overwork it. Have the goal of it being a nice flat wash, and then it is what it is. Leave it alone, because that's part of what makes watercolor fun, is that it's got that sort of imperfection to it. So now I'm going to do a gradient wash. So for that one, I wanted to actually get lighter as it goes. Careful flicking like that. So I'm going to get a healthy dose up here. Watercolor is going to lighten as it dries too. But again, this is thin paper. It's going to absorb water real fast and start wrinkling. So I got to move quickly. Just working my way down. Some watercolors like having a little bit of an incline on their table. Get some more water. Still just like the flat wash though, I want to keep the edge wet so I don't get a big nasty streak in it. All right, so once you've practiced your flat washes and your gradiated washes, you should start practicing some different shapes. Mostly what we'll be doing in this class is doing our construction drawing and then doing a watercolor wash and finishing it off with colored pencil or other media like that. Start, so you just gotta decide what brush you think is going to be best for a given shape and decide what kind of wash you want to do. You want to keep that edge wet, control the edge of your watercolor, and just try to have it do what you want. So working quickly, keeping the edge wet, and think about places where you would have overlap. So you usually want to do one and then let it dry. So if I was to take this dark green, sometimes it's easier to get a straight line out of a flat brush than it is the round one. I went and grabbed some leaves out of the yard, and there's like that's for cherry tomatoes, and here's a cherry tomato red on here or something like that. And I want to leave a little room for the highlight. See, it's kind of orangey, but that's okay because it's a tomato, and I can also mix in a little bit if I want. So this is called wet and wet, and that means that the paint's still wet and you mess with it, you can add more color to it and watch it bloom. You just got to be careful on this paper again, because this is not really what this paper excels at. But if you work quickly, you can kind of get away with it. So there's a certain calligraphy to it too, especially when you're working fast, where you think about like in East Asian countries, instead of pens, they traditionally used brushes to get all sorts of expressive strokes. Painting, especially when you're working fast, if you can make nice shapes with your brush work, it works, tends to make things go faster and look better. All right, it's pretty dry for the most part. So once you have that wash on, you can see that it's a little wet there, but it's not real thick, mostly sunk into the paper. Something like this pen I could have done beforehand, but I didn't. So white. So if I got some highlights I can try to put in there. Again, if you haven't left any white paper, it's hard to get it to do too much. So hard edges are going to make things look shinier too. So you can see there's a little reflected light from the paper there. So all right, so I'm just going to try to see if I can get the punch in the value a little bit with some of this dark brown here. A little drop shadow. I could have done some of this with the watercolor, but I didn't. So I'm just going to throw a little in here with this black Prismacolor. See if we can get to grade 8. Tuck the shadow underneath the form a little bit here.